Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Thanks for watching. Welcome back if you've been here before. Doing a video today about an often overlooked Omega, the Omega Seamaster 120M, which was made from about 1993 through the end of that decade. I have done other videos about these watches, but receiving this really interesting gray dial version has rekindled my interest in them. I've said it before and I'll say it again here. This is a watch that does not get the attention, especially from collectors, that it deserves, in my opinion. This is a copy of a print ad I found regarding the 120M. As you can see, just in here, there are quite a lot of varieties of this watch, and really what you see in these 2 pages is just scratching the surface of how many different versions of this watch Omega made. Most of them will be silver, black, or blue dials. All the men's 120Ms will be 36 millimeters in case diameter with a lug width of 18 millimeters. The lug to lug distance is a little over 42 millimeters. The thickness is approximately 10 millimeters. And here is a view of the gray dial quartz version in the middle, a gray dial 38.5 millimeter Aquaterra on the right as a comparison, and a automatic 120M, which is also 36 millimeters. As you can see from that shot and this one, where the 120M is side by side with a 40 millimeter Omega 200M, an older watch, the 36 millimeter does not look or wear too small, in my opinion, and I think that's helped by the fact that it has a non-taper bracelet, meaning it's 18 millimeter wide at the lugs, as I mentioned, but then 18 millimeter all the way through to the clasp. And a lot of watches which are bigger have 18 millimeter clasp, so that increased bulk or heft from the non-tapering bracelet helps give the watch more presence than its dimensions would suggest on paper. Another interesting thing I wanted to note by comparing this watch with the 200M to its right, the Omega made a tremendous leap forward in build quality, in my opinion, with the 120M. The 200M was made from about 1987-88 through, I think, 95, while the 120M here was made starting in 1993. So there is a little bit of overlap, but the 120M, if you hold it in hand, really is not far behind in terms of build quality as compared to Omega's modern offerings. Bracelet is really tight, really well made. The case is really well made. The lines are really beautifully sculpted, and it's something that it's difficult to show in a picture or a video, but it really has to be appreciated in hand. As you can see, the profile of the case and bracelet are both quite thin, making the watch extremely comfortable, something which I feel, and I think many other collectors feel, is sorely lacking in today's Omega offerings, which just seem to be getting chunkier and thicker with every new watch that's released. And something actually similar to today's Omega in the 120M is the variety of colors and styles that this watch was available in. As many know, Omega makes a ton of varieties of its watches today, but as you can see here, the 120M was perhaps ahead of its time in that regard. Omega changed the dial slightly quite a number of times, offered special editions, and offered a good number of colors. For example, this is a green dial version, very seldom seen, but they are out there. They also made them with gold dials and completely gold cases, or two-tone cases with gold bezels. The hands generally changed to the skeleton design as shown here in the later years, as opposed to the stick hands that the watch featured in the video has. The dial markers also changed to a mix of dots and sticks, different styles of stick markers, and the dials also started having the wave pattern toward the later years, and there are even special editions where that wave pattern was replaced with a dolphin motif, as shown here. There are also other rare versions which have Arabic numerals on the dial at the 12, 6, and 9 position. I think that's a really interesting variant of this watch. And speaking of variants of the watch, I think it's important to briefly discuss the movements available on this watch. As you can see, the one shown here for most of the video is a quartz model. I will be showing one of my automatic versions of this in a few moments, but as far as I know, there are two quartz calibers, the 1438 and 1538, which were used on a lot of watches by Omega. Both have the quick set hour hand, meaning at the first pulled out position of the crown, turning the crown changes the moves the hour hand in 1 hour increments, and that's how you change the date. Similarly, the automatic calibers, which were available for this watch, the 1109 and 1120, have that same feature. They are both based on the ETA 2892, which is a very nice and thin automatic movement. I love the base ETA 2892 on the watches which I own, which have that, and the Omega 1109 and 1120 are also both excellent and reliable movements. Speaking of which, this is one of the automatic versions of the Omega 120M. The way you know this is automatic, well, obviously it says automatic right under the word Seamaster on the dial. It also says chronometer. However, the automatic and quartz versions of the 120M share the same solid case back, and the case, while almost exactly the same, is slightly thicker in the automatic watches. But given the fact that it's an automatic, they did a wonderful job in keeping the case slim. And here is another automatic, a two-tone. As you can see here, this watch also came with a two-tone bond bracelet, having the thinnest part of the center links wrapped in 18 karat gold. And here is a view of the side of the case, which I really, to be very honest with you, can't get enough of it. I think it's I love watches that are really well built but still low profile and comfortable, and I really wish that manufacturers would come back to focusing on that. I just think the thick watch fad has run its course, and I hope to see a trend returning to thinner cases, such as on this 120M here. Here's another view of the gray dial. These watches are going to be, whatever you find is going to be at least 30 years old. So something to note is you probably will see many examples with some slight dial deterioration, as this one has. It's something that's going to be inevitable, I think, given the ages that these watches are approaching. I would not base a buying decision solely on the condition of the dial, meaning, some slight blemishes, I think, are acceptable and should be expected, really, in watches that are this old. Another thing to note in shopping or looking for these watches, components of these watches vary from watch to watch. Something interesting about Omegas of this era, and I think it's due to the fact that Omega used different suppliers and different factories to make components of these watches. So you'll see bracelets that say made in France, other bracelets will say Swiss made. Interesting point of difference I've noticed is the end links. Some of these watches will have end links where the end link is not made of different the smaller pieces of the end link are not separate pieces of metal, but rather the entire end link is one piece of steel with polished sections to simulate individual pieces of the center link. So I don't think that's as desirable as the true end link comprised of the separate pieces for the middle portions of the link. But the reason I bring it up is if you have one of these or find one of these that has a slight difference from, let's say, a picture you find online, it shouldn't be cause for concern. It does not mean the watch is fake or counterfeit. It's just the nature of these watches having components that were made by different entities or factories. So something to take note of. Even on my small collection, I've seen differences between bracelets that should otherwise be identical. And the last note, again, concerning shopping for these, is another great reason to buy them is how inexpensive they are compared to other Omegas of that era and newer Omegas. As I said earlier in the video, these watches lack nothing in terms of build quality. They can compete with today's models easily, and it's really remarkable how much less expensive these are than, let's say, even a first generation Aquaterra. And couple that with the fact that many different versions are available and tremendous numbers are available, and I think it's a recipe for a absolute great deal. So let me know what you think. If you have one of these, I'd love to hear your comments as well, and thanks for watching.